Welcome to my review, or my attempt to review Duel of Ages 2. This is a very difficult game to review because it is a hybrid between so many different things. There's a little bit of a war game feel, there is a little bit of an RPG, adventure, storytelling game a la Tales of the Arabian Nights, the idea that there are random elements that build a story around the characters and the players. All of these things come together. Well, what is the theme to start with? That even that is particularly hard to describe. It is something that has to do with the future and with games that are done in the future. They're played in the future with characters from different periods in history, different places, different periods in time, and characters are represented by cards with the stats. They're incredibly different characters, from the perky space cadet, the Pat Garrett, Sir Gawain, this sort of like kind of generic sci-fi hero, generic sci-fi cyborg, Blackbeard, Amazon, fantasy characters, Geronimo, so some characters from history, some completely fictional, some made up for this game, some from well-known fictions. The characters are divided in four ages: the future, the colonial age, the past, the ancient past, and the present. And well, the age, the era where they come from matters for game purposes. That is, that all these people are brought into this arena in which they do stuff. The stuff that they do changes vastly depending on the scenario that you play, and the scenarios are organized in progressive order of difficulty in the rulebook. The rulebook is smartly organized because it is a sort of tutorial. It starts by showing you the basic mechanics and by telling you to play a game using those mechanics, which pretty much are move, melee, and encounters, and then the game progresses and becomes more complex, and as there are more rules that are added in by the rulebook, you also have scenarios that incorporate more rules. When you have the full set of rules, so then the idea is that the teams of characters controlled by the players are going around the map, trying to gain points to win this strange game with all these people involved. And there are several ways to gain points. You can, yes, gain points by attacking the enemies, but you can also retrieve artifacts, you can impress people. There are just many ways in which you can gain points. Attacking is not the only way. Going through adventures and completing adventures successfully is a huge part of the game. And it is also what balances the war game feel with the adventure storytelling elements of the game. The game is played using these plates here, which are modular, and you can use them to combine them in different ways. This is just an hypothetical map. These plates are connected using these keys here, and there are a lot of them that serve different purposes. Some are sort of generic connectors with the domes that are used in several parts of the game. Some are bases that the two teams may have, and they're trying to trash the base of the opponent at the same time as they gain advantages by using their own base. There are caverns, which pretty much work like dungeons. A lot of different things, and you can just combine the plates in different ways. A lot of replay value there too, even before you purchase the master set, in which you have a ton of other stuff that really will increase the replay value of the game to mind-blowing proportions. Let's start from the basic game, from the basic ideas. I don't think I'll get into the details of the more advanced ideas because things will get too complicated. And again, this is a game that is meant to be learned as you play it, so I'll try to introduce you to the very basic concepts of the game so that you get a sense, get a feel for the game, and you get a sense of whether or not you may be interested in giving it a try, at least to give a try to the basic set. Now, the characters, as I said earlier, are represented by cards that have a lot of stats on them. movement, life points, several factors that are used to resolve melee, ranged ability, defense, and other traits. They may start with cards, they may have other powers described here. For example, wearing fashionable rocket boots, that's a very important ability. There may be restrictions. A lot of different characters, a ton of characters, each with different abilities, advantages, specific traits. The game is very thematic. The theme is crazy, but somehow it is represented very well. You do get the sense that you have these characters drawn together from all places and times, and they're trying to maximize what each can do so that the team can win. The characters are also represented on the board by a marker that indicates the position of the character on the board. The characters are divided in teams, Team White and Team Black. As you can see, each marker representing a character has two sides, and from the sides you can tell if the character in that game belongs to Team Black or Team White. So the characters will be on the board, we'll go around, we'll do stuff. And, well, let me just put things randomly there and see what happens. The full turn structure, as explained on this excellent player aid, includes free action, when characters can perform free actions, such as trading cards, fire, that is range attacks, move, upfire, in which you get to attack the members of the opposing team that just moved, so that is something you perform during the opponent's turn. Melee, where players are sharing characters are sharing the same space, can try to beat the snot out of each other. Adventure, when you challenge adventures, and reinforce, when you bring new people onto the board. And you will not use all of these phases in all of the games. In the earlier games, for example, there is a strong focus on melee. Then in later scenarios during the training that the rule book makes you go through, then in later scenarios you have fire, and then you get to the full idea. Move, it is pretty simple. Characters have a movement rating, they move on the board and they spend movement points, and those movement points that they spend depend on the type of terrain that they enter. Pretty straightforward. Important thing is melee. If two characters share the same space, they can fight during the melee phase. Characters involved in melee attack in order of wits. The wittier, the faster. So wit is this stat here. She has a higher rating than the guy does, 5-2. She attacks him first. When you resolve melee, you compare the attack rating of the attacker with the defense of the defender. This in particular is react. We have 3 versus 4. The attacker is at -1. The defender is better by 1. Once you have that ratio, you draw a challenge card and you look at this column here, which is used to see whether you hit or not, and then you look at the line that applies. In this case, the defender is better by 1. That is still a hit. There's a pretty good card for her. If you have a hit, then you need to draw a second card to see the amount of damage that you inflict. Characters have I would call it penetration value or power of impact, and a damage that they inflict. That is compared with the defense of the defender. In this case, we have an impact of 2 and a defense of 2. 0. The attacker is better by 0. And we draw a card that will modify the natural damage that she inflicts. So we said the attacker is better by 0. Well, this is too bad for her because the modifier here is -2. So she did hit, but she didn't hit hard enough to inflict any damage because the modifier is -2. That modifies her 2 and brings it down to 0. She inflicts 0 damage. But to me, she is still the moral winner of the fight. And that's how melee works. Suppose that we are testing range attacks. Now she is firing at him using this pistol. Carters do not have a natural range value. They need weapons. However, they do have natural range abilities that tells you how good they are in to handle range weapons, and the three stats are aim, point, and throw. She's using the flintlock that requires the point skill. She has 5, not bad at all. In this case, to resolve the range attack, and of course, in order to be able to launch range attack, you also need to have line of sight, and the rules to determine line of sight are pretty easy. Well, to resolve that, you need to compare the rating that you're using. In this case, we have point versus the defense of the opponent versus the stealth of the opponent. 5 and 3. This time, the attacker is better by 2. We draw a challenge card, and we look at the column again. This time the attacker is better by 2, but this is not a very good card for her because being better by 2 is not good enough. It is still a miss. Suppose that she did hit. Look at that. Yay! Being better by 2 here means to hit. Then we calculate the damage, which is done as before, comparing the impact of the weapon with the defense of the opponent and using the difference to modify, well, to find the modifier on this card, and then you apply the modifier to the power of impact of the weapon and you inflict that amount of damage. That is for combat. There are slight difference between normal range attack and upfire, but they are not huge. I think you get a sense. But in this game, you're not only fighting, you're also encountering and adventuring. Encounters are represented by tokens, such as this one. Encounters are not violent in nature. They don't represent people that you attack. They represent people that you're trying to impress. The type of impression that you're trying to make and the people you are trying to impress are represented on the back of these encounter tokens. For example, you're trying to impress the guys at the shooting gallery, or entities that live in the pixie thicket, the dudes at the workshop, the Big Bang Theory guys that work at the physics lab, stuff like that. Here you have a value that indicates the rating that you need to have to pass that encounter. Well, that's actually is the value of the rating, and then you have a symbol indicating the type of rating. The workshop is a special case because actually you have to pay a card in order to gain the associated advantage. Yes, because the number on the right represents the number of cards that you get to draw if you pass that challenge. In this case, you pretty much convert a single card in 2 cards. When you are facing an adventure, you will draw a card and you see what the adventure is. All heroes are created equal, at least Lith will treat them as such for this moment. There are just crazy things happening here. The storylines created by the adventure cards are very different. Some are very heroic, some are definitely tongue-in-cheek and ridiculous. Yeah, it may be that you are hunting the werewolf, but then you may face in the 5 battle targets a passion for fashion. How are you slinking up and down the catwalk? And you can have any character having to face this challenge. You may have an ancient knight walking down the catwalk. You may have a character from history like Geronimo trying to ride a griffin. You may have people from the sci-fi era fighting in the Colosseum. There is definitely some fun to be had with these adventures. here you have the stats, and in a certain way, it's just a quote unquote mathematical thing. The type of challenge, the era, the symbols here will give you modifiers, but at the end, it's a mathematical thing. You compare ratings and see whether you're successful or not, and the type of success or insuccess that you have, but there is fun to be had thanks to the theme, and very often the description of the effects of what happens, especially when you're looking at the abysmal failure or the total success. Those are pretty darn funny. Let's see, for example, this one. Mage School. Today you will be learning to balance the elements of fire and water. Abysmal failure, failure of epic proportions. Half of the school is scorched, the other half is wet. There was one about dancing with creatures of the woods, with satires. Well, at least you're getting a sense. The seven-headed giant, he fully intends to eat you if he can agree among himself. I mean, that's already fun in itself. The heads argue for a while until they realize that sneaky head number 5 has already eaten you. Bad. Kung Fu Punks. It's just fun, crazy stuff. All these things, bring a lot of variety, and there is extra fun, of course, when the characters that are facing a certain challenge or thematically entirely inappropriate to face that challenge. In terms of flow and feel, the game reminded me of Arkham Horror more than anything else. The idea that there is a deck of cards that generates events, but there's also you have in many other games. The idea that there are characters that are incredibly different from one another, they specialize in different things, and maybe more than anything, the idea that there isn't a single thing to do. There are different paths, and heroes may specialize in doing different things and may be doing very different things at different times during the game. In Arkham Horror, some people are buying stuff, some people are fighting, some people are looking for clues, some people are traveling into strange dimensions, and something very similar happens here. Of course, this is a competitive game, even though you play in teams of characters, and the characters may be maneuvered by different players, so you have teams of players, not necessarily teams of characters only, and that actually means that there's a cooperative aspect. At least people from the same team are cooperating as they're going against the team of the opponent. If you like Arkham Horror, I think that this is a game that you may enjoy. There is a level of randomness that probably is higher than in Arkham Horror, but also, as you see from the theme, this is not a game that should be taken too seriously, at least thematically. This is a game that I really believe is meant to give you a good laugh at the same time as you're also going through adventures that in most cases are exciting, but the situation is so crazy, the zaniness of it all, of having ancient knights using laser guns against monsters from sci-fi and situations that have nothing to do with anything else that is involved. All these things create a specific feel that really is unique to this game, and clearly the designer could not know it. As you say, I think I'm gonna have a game where you have people from ancient times and sci-fi heroes working together to fight against modern time heroes. It was meant to be. I think it works very well. The theme is unique. The feel, yes. Like I said, Arkham Horror is the closest comparison that comes to mind, but the feel is still pretty unique here. A little bit of war game, a little bit of RPG, a little bit of adventure feel. Probably the RPG aspect of the situation comes out more in the fuller scenarios, the one that use more rules, and the ones that have more adventures. They have the caverns, and a lot of things happen. There are a lot of options. The level of complexity does increase, but not so much conceptually. I would say that the level of complexity increases throughout the scenarios because of the higher number of options that you have. You can use areas of your base, you can destroy areas of the opponent, you can imprison enemies, you can interrogate prisoners, you can break prisoners out of prison. Just the prison thing is a mini universe of options that emerge in the later scenarios. So much stuff that you can do, so many things that the characters can do. The characters interact with each other in different ways, they interact with the objects and the treasure cards in different ways, different terrain depending on how you set up the map. The replay value is huge, even though the overall frame remains the same. Just the way in which the elements of the theme just clash together and then are interwoven by the story. All of these things will change vastly from game to game, and even if the strategies may more or less remain the same, the story will be very different. The feel, at least in my experience, is very different. So I enjoyed this game quite a bit. It's very unique. I don't know that everybody will like it. I think it's gonna be a little bit of a matter of love and hate, or love and meh, maybe. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I love theme. I love theming games. This game really has a strong thematic feel, a theme that I hadn't seen before. It is weird theme and weird game, but I have to tell you, this is weird done right.